think let's just quickly touch base on how the influence of polo, Indian polo, actually created this wave of polo around the world. So it was the apocryphal story is that this Joe Shearer, this lieutenant in the British Army, came across the Indians, locals, playing polo in a tea plantation in Manipur, and he looked at it, basically having come across it, and saw what an amazing training vehicle. It wasn't that the British Army created polo in Manipur. On the contrary, it was actually already a very Indian game, or there was a lot of Persian influence, and then in India as well. The locals played polo. What the British did is they then put the rules in the game. So the British Army looked at it, formalised the rules in the Hurlingham Club in London, having seen what they saw in India. They wrote a 36-page document saying, look, this is the way we think we can structure the game. And then they used it as a training vehicle for the cavalry, because the British Army officers had to ride their horse in their left hand and have their sword in their right hand. So polo, because it's a right-hand dominant sport, became a brilliant training vehicle for the British Army. So all of these other polo clubs that you mentioned, Malta, Singapore, Malaysia, Ireland, England, they effectively were British military training camps for the British Army officers, and that was where the origin of the sport came from. So I think dealing with the heritage of what India has created for polo, where every time I ask questions about what's going on, well, where did polo originate from, people start with Argentina because that's their modern perspective, and then straight away they go back to India. So there is this amazing synergy, this amazing connectivity between the heritage of the sport, the Britishness that is now reflected across polo, and the values that come, and we'll go into that later, but actually this heritage and the tradition goes back originally to India. So that's a little bit about the backdrop. So we're obviously hugely indebted to the Indian culture for the creation of the sport, and then the British doing what they do, which is go and put rules on top. I think about the connectivity with horses is there's a brilliant expression that I love to use occasionally, which is there's nothing so good for the inside of a man as the outside of a horse. And I think it really expresses this bond, or this union between man and beast, and it really does bring out the best in people, having this interaction with an animal that is as noble and as loyal and as obedient and as magnificent as a horse. So with obviously the religious implications of a polytheistic religion in India and Hinduism, and the respect you have for animals based on the religious principles, I think you can see that it's a part of Indian culture that they look at animals in a different way, maybe they do in an Argentine culture. The heritage tournaments obviously have a huge role to play in polo culture. You can play for the Indian Empire Shield, for example, in England, which would be one of the top 4 tournaments that you compete in the whole English calendar. The Ezra Cup in Calcutta, maybe it's lost a little bit of its importance over a calendar year, because the level of polo is not as high in India as we do play in other countries. So it's not that it's not as significant to us. Those who know the heritage of the sport fully understand the value that it holds, being the oldest continually played polo cup. But in terms of a level, it's no longer at the level it was. If you ask any modern polo professional, what's the priority of cups that they go and play, that's not going to feature. That doesn't mean for those who are students of the game, look at it and go, what an amazing experience it would be to go and play in Calcutta and have a go trying to win that cup, because, as you say, it has names on it from 1880 and is the original cup that was first played for. So I think those are very valuable things. We always look to try and associate and keep the legacy of the sport going, acknowledging the past, but always moving forward. So for anybody looking for an experience to go and play polo in India, to go and try and compete for the cups in Rajasthan, or to go down to Calcutta and play there, or to go and try and get a game of polo up in Manipur, which I haven't done yet. So there are a few bucket list things still to be done. But the heritage is important, but we have to accept that modern polo and the prestige of the modern tournaments probably exceeds a little bit the heritage cups. I've been very lucky with Royal Salute trips and with La Martina to experience all of the Rajasthan clubs, which I think is probably now where the centre of polo really is, between Delhi, the fields there, Jaipur, Jodhpur. I think that's kind of where the heart of polo professionally certainly is now. I would love to go and play up in Uttar Pradesh and go and play, right up in the north and go and have a go at one of the games up in the mountains. I think again that's another bucket list trip. The experiences I've had playing in Jaipur and playing in Jodhpur, I think have been some of the best experiences of my polo career. Just the sights, the sounds, the smell, the whole atmosphere of the way the game is played, the talent of the local players, and the different way which they approach the game compared to we do maybe in a more professional environment, either in England or in Argentina. But yeah, I think you have to associate what polo offers, and polo offers is that Winston Churchill expression, it's a passport to the world, and the opportunity to travel and to go and see these places is actually part of going to play. It's part of the journey of going to play in Rajasthan. So I would recommend very highly anybody given the chance to go and play in Jodhpur at Pat Joe's house, or to go to the Ume Barwin Palace and play in the Jodhpur Polo Club, that they should embrace it straight away. First of all, what would you do to try and create more of a mass product? How do you drive a modern audience to polos? So that's something that we've been looking at, both for La Martina and from Royal Salute's point of view, to try and find a combination of looking how to get polo into inner city environments. And we explored it quite heavily in America, creating a concept which was called Gladiator Polo, that was a very combative three-a-side in an arena polo match that would basically try and find locations in a city and put a polo arena up and play. And I think that will be one day, that will be the next iteration of polo into city environments, trying to find a 9-acre piece of land in the middle of a city and have a polo club. In essence, like Singapore, where the polo club was built and the city has grown around it. It's very hard to try and find the real estate in any modern city to do that. So we need to try and be a little bit more imaginative, how to create that tourism product, how to create the next generation of polo players. So I think those will be things that we will look at. I've seen, obviously, through social media, the prevalence of some of these younger Indian players coming through and how fantastically well they play the game. And I think we need to really help embrace that rebirth of polo and try and get to the next generation of players. And this means creating academies. It means creating pathways for privileged, underprivileged, the whole spectrum of people to go in the bottom of the sport and learn it from the grassroots up. We discussed the benefit of actually interactions with horses, having inner city polo clubs or inner city equestrian environments where you can actually get children to go and interact with horses and ride. I think is so beneficial for the physical and mental well-being of that generation, that we should really be trying to find a way to do it. Delhi, I think, will be probably your biggest opportunity in terms of it being an industrial center, it being a wealthy city and a very affluent culture coming through. I think that's going to be one of the environments where, correctly marketed, you could have an environment where polo really does see an explosion. I'm coming down to Mumbai in March, and we're going to be playing an exhibition game for La Martina Guards polo team against the Reliance Group, or against an Indian polo team. And I think these small events, they are going to be something which we have to grow year on year to try and create a following and make the evening or make the day entertaining for people. People want fun. They want an escape. They want to have something which takes them away from their life and lets them live that dream. And I think it's part of our responsibility when creating events to try and fulfill that for them. What India has to offer is so utterly unique that I would be selling the tourism product on the back of that, as opposed to go and play polo. Now, if I want to just go and play polo, I'm probably going to go and play polo in an environment where I've got access to X number of horses, 10 times the number of polo fields, 10 times the number of players. I'm not necessarily going to go to India just for the sake of polo. What I will go to do is go to India to experience what an incredible country India is and play polo there as part of my package of entertainment. So in December, we're coming back to hopefully do the next iteration of British Polo Day in Rajasthan and play in Jaipur and Jodhpur. And it's a 8-day, 10-day tourism trip. And yes, we're going to bring a package of people And it might be 100, it might be 150, it might be 400, depends how many people we really convince to do it. But that is a tourism product. So there is something there that you can sell as a unique experience around the world. Inevitably, the people that play polo, the people that own polo teams, they're a very rare person and they have access to every experience around the world. What India has and what Rajasthan Polo has to offer specifically is a truly unique experience. And I think it's something that every polo player would want to, at some time in their life, feel and smell and taste, because I think that's what India really, really offers. So from a tourism point of view, I would sell India and polo, not polo in India. One of my first memories, I think the first time I came was 2003. And I was playing for a team, it was Hutch Telecom back in the day, and was walking down the street in Jaipur, and our polo matches got reported on the back page of the newspapers, and it had photos of us playing, and it had big match reports, and it was a real kind of sporting event. And it was going down the street, and people were sort of kind of following you into shops, and there were groups of kids following. I remember this amazing Argentine polo player who was playing the tournament, who had a fan base, and basically everywhere they went, they followed him, and they were sort of chanting his name. And I remember it just being the first time it genuinely felt like playing polo in a city where people knew what the game was. So that's one of my first memories. And after that, I just think it's the fantastic heritage and the sounds and the smells of the cities. And obviously we've stayed in beautiful places. We stayed in the Umebaran Palace, or we stayed in the Rambagh Palace in Jaipur, and they are iconic hotels, and with the service culture and the kindness of the people from every walk of life, dealing with the grooms all the way through to having dinner with the Maharaja. I think that incredible mix of society that you get in India makes it a trip that no one ever forgets. Yes, I mean, first of all, let's embrace quite how good Hanut Singh and Maharaja Man Singh were. I mean, they were. If you look at the heritage of polo, they dominated polo in that sort of pre-Second World War era, and after Second World War, when polo opened up again in Britain, Hanut Singh was regarded as the best polo player in the world. Only in the sort of late 1940s, early 1950s did the Argentines start to supersede. Although the Argentines did win the Olympic gold medal pre-World War II, beating everybody quite convincingly. That was the sort of decline. Manut Singh and Hanut Singh were just at the end of their careers as the Argentines were coming forward. So I think you really have to dig into how amazingly talented the players were. My grandmother played in the first ever ladies polo match in 1924. And her father and her uncles were 9 goals, and they played in the British team. And she remembers watching Hanut Singh play polo in the 1940s, and she said he was absolutely extraordinary. So I've heard firsthand how talented he were. So now, how do we create an environment? So if we took Reliance Group, they are now in partnership with La Martina, and there's going to be hopefully a considerable process of investment. It's a very long-term vision that the Reliance Group have with the clothes brand, and that La Martina wish to invest back into polo in India to try and create this next generation of explosion. How does that physically play out? You have to have a combination of events that get people's attention. You have to have the opportunity to take people to play, and then you have to have a funnel of people learning the sport from the bottom up. Like every sport, the wider the base, the better the top. And we just need to try and create an environment where more people get access to sport. It's long been a dream of everybody to say polo is for everybody. Polo is not for everybody. We can't change that fact. What we can do is try and create an environment where more people have a go, and therefore there'll be a better chance that some of them come back and create. Because with your population, with the sporting ability that you have, you just have to look at cricket and go, what an incredible passion for sport the Indian people have. And if we could try and focus a little bit, if it's only 1% of that into people, that you'll have an incredible rebirth of polo, I think, in India. She didn't really tell me much about it till quite late in my life. She sort of kept it quite quiet. And then on my 18th birthday, she gave me this silver cup. And I was like, Granny, what's the silver cup for? Where's my Walkman, or where's my, my CD player? And she said, read the cup. And it was like inaugural ladies polo test match 1924. I said, what's that? She said, look at the names. And there it was. Anyway, and then she got this photograph album out. And there's a back page of the New York Times from 1902, when it was her father playing for England against America in the Westchester Cup. And she's explained this whole story. So she wasn't necessarily an inspiration for it. In fact, I think my sort of parents were very reluctant for me to start playing polo, just because of the entry level, the cost to get into it. And it's been one of those decisions that I made for my own life, and it's taken me on an incredible journey. But very much, I remember latterly in her life, she came to watch me play a lot. And it was great for her to see, I think, having gone full cycle in her life through the Second World War, and then through her own family, and then go back to seeing me playing polo, I think was a fabulous thing. She came to watch me play in the World Cup in 1998 in America. And I think that was an extraordinary experience for her, seeing almost 100 years between her father playing and then me playing nearly 100 years later. I think was an incredible experience for her. I suppose two options: to either just compete in their own circuit, or compete with us like for like, which they have done for the last 50 years, and have done extremely effectively. We've had some lady polo players who won the British Open here, playing against 10-goal men, and they hold their own and play extremely well. Nina Clarkin or Claire Tomlinson from the generation before were the sort of inspirational, world-leading lady players. The boom in the female area of the sport, I think, is just getting going. Obviously, there's such a natural affinity, the women with their horses, with the association, with their I suppose that connectivity that they have when they ride. It's so much more natural, and they seem to create such a bond both with themselves and with the horses, and the care and attention that they go into, where I think often that male polo players just use their horses as a vehicle to get from A to B. But that's a different conversation. I see, if we can again keep creating environments where opportunities open up, that growth in female participation in the sport will only carry on. Let's break that down into a couple of points. So I started working for Royal Salute in 2006, having played a polo event in China, and came across the brand, who were doing their very first sort of initiation into polo then. And I went to the brand team in London and said, look, you've stumbled across something which I think is a perfect fit. And I looked at the heritage of the brand, which is obviously a whiskey that was created for the coronation of Queen Elizabeth in 1953. It's got a lot of royal heritage. It's got a lot of traditions. The sport of polo is the sport of kings. It's got those royal ties. So for me, when we started creating the marketing plan for it, and I started consulting on the brand in 2006, it just seemed like a very natural fit. But our objective was to grow the sport, and not just to be a brand that pulled out the attributes that the sport has for the brand's benefit. It was to invest in the sport, create an affiliation with the sport, support local clubs, support other environments, other countries where polo needed a bit of help. And that's where the story of Jodhpur came in. So one of our great brand ambassadors, Peter Prentice, had a very close relationship with the Maharaja of Jodhpur, with Babji. And he approached Babji and said, could we please host some tournaments at Jodhpur, and we'll bring guests. Anyway, so we started with these Christmas and New Year polo tournaments, and then it's grown into this continual cycle of events that we've done, I think now for 16, 17 years in Jodhpur. And it's become one of these iconic locations. So when they approached me, Royal Salute said, look, we'd like to do some bottles dedicated to polo, and I have my own range of Royal Salute 21-year-old blended whiskies. They asked where was significant for me. And on the back of these lovely experiences I'd had in Jodhpur, I said, well, we have to give a bit of respect to the places where polo really has its origin. So we did this beautiful saffron coloured bottle with a slightly spicy malted whiskey blend, and it's been really successful. I think that was our 4th edition of our polo range, and it's been a really successful. It was our 5th bottle, It's been a really successful launch, and we've been able to hopefully draw a bit of attention back to Jodhpur and back to the sights and sounds of the incredible city that is Jodhpur. This association between the Reliance Group and La Martina and Polo is to try and bring the focus back to expanding the sport. So we're going to create events. It's a 25-year plan that they've got. This is not thinking short term. This is about how we create the next generation of polo players in India and how we invest in the sport in India to try and find a way through to the next generation of players. So it's a Guards Polo Match Challenge supported by La Martina. So Guards Polo Club obviously is the premier polo club in the UK, and La Martina has its home at the Guards Polo Club in England, and we're going to do a reciprocal. So we're going to challenge an Indian team, and we'll be a La Martina Guards Polo Club team there in Mumbai, and then they're going to come over here and play a reciprocal match, probably the day before the final of the Indian Empire Shield, which is, as I mentioned earlier, which is one of these very prestigious heritage tournaments that we play at a very top level here in England. So the idea is to try and create a little bit of press interest. It's during Mumbai Fashion Week, which from La Martina's point of view works perfectly because we're going to be launching a capsule collection dedicated to polo in India. And I think it's one of those really nice stories. So look, we're going to take people out to a polo game, let them experience what it is, hopefully give them a chance to learn to play, and actually create something that will stick in people's memories and cut through the noise that will be that fashion week, and find a little bit of space for the brand.